I want to talk to you about boycott. America's Industrial Revolution, the Union, the suffrage movement, child labor laws, the civil rights movement, boycotts. And they were designed when you couldn't push a corporation, a government, an entity, a monopoly. You made yourself suffer. You lay down your life for something bigger. You boycott. And American workers, the common man, who virtually in our corporatocracy, aristocracy, has very little power. Yes, we broke off from England, from the monarchy, only to set up our own hierarchy. We found another way to subjugate and put our boot on the neck of our fellow men. And it was hard for the workers under men like Carnegie, the Industrial Revolution barons that moved oil, steel, and earth to advantage America's capital profiteering, to be successful. It's not a crime. But to be overly ambitious with greed, with the central thing being profiteering, is modesty, my friends, even in making money. The more you make, the more you take, the more you want, the more you will suppress, the more you will compromise, persecute, and prosecute. To your shareholders, your investors, I've got an obligation to my investors, my shareholders. No, you have an obligation to God, your maker and creator, and how you treat your fellow man at the expense of making money from them. Nehemiah talked to them when they were rebuilding the walls. They were profiteering off of their fellow Jewish brethren in the midst of rebuilding and defending themselves against an enemy in the process, brother against brother. But boycott was a means of a poor man, a man without legislative lobbying power, a man without monetary means, a man without class and distinction that could still move the greatest wills of power by a simple act of self-sacrifice, giving up. What are you willing to give up to get up? What are you willing to lay down to pick up? What are you willing to sacrifice for a better price? What are you willing to die for in order to live for? You see, you got to turn down something. You got to not buy that product. You got to explain to your children why you're not going to wear those shoes, why you're not going to go to that store, why you can't buy that ice cream, why you can't have that, why you're not going to Disneyland. Because there's something bigger that you're trying to move other than the adrenaline enjoyment, the dopamine satisfaction from supporting something that at its core is really against you. What are you willing to do? What are you willing to go to war for? What are you willing to turn away from? Not going to live in that neighborhood, not going to buy that particular car, not going to get this brand. And they used to say, well, my gosh, if we boycott that, we'll have to boycott everything. Well, then boycott everything. They call that a hunger strike. And great activists used to do that. Great revolutionaries used to do that. I'm not going to wait for you to kill me. I'm going to stop eating. And what if all the hostages in Gaza had decided to go on a hunger strike? Dissidents and nations have done it throughout history. Most of you don't read history. You don't care about it. State prisoners, people in Russia and Romania, Croatia, South Africa, South Africa, Nelson Mandela. Are you willing to go on a hunger strike to bring attention to the mission, to the cause, not to buying a new Tesla SUV? What is wrong with you people? You've lost your spirit of nobility, that spirit to fight for something more, something greater than. That's why my people were able in the 60s to walk down a street and have their heads batted by a police baton while they're wearing their church Sunday clothes. And it wasn't just men, it was the mother and the grandmother that they beat. Marched for something bigger, something more than. It is what gives you purpose. It is what makes you stand tall, regardless of the water hose and the dogs barking and biting. They can imprison the body, but they cannot imprison the soul or mind. But you got to boycott. What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his own soul? What are you willing to lay down, to give up? You can't do that to satisfy a woman. You definitely shouldn't do that to satisfy yourself. It's got to be to satisfy a higher power, the maker and the creator, Yad-Heh-Vah Adonai, Hashem Elohim. Stand up for what you believe, else you'll be suppressed for what you don't. Give up and die for the cause. Give to something bigger than you and your addictions and your vehicles. Give to something that makes the difference. Give to the ones that are different. Change the world and be that change by all and every means necessary. And that, my friend, is what makes a people great, that makes you great, and allows he who is great to accomplish his will in your life. Boycott.